Good evening, dear friends. Hope you're all doing well. Let's do today's Daily Mitzvah, continuing the theme of forbidden intimate relations, forbidden form of marriages, maintaining the sacredness of the Jewish marriage. So here we have a few mitzvahs. Let us begin. The first mitzvah for today is that it is forbidden to marry a non-Jew. As the Torah says, "V'lo sischatin bam," and you shall not intermarry with them. And the Torah says clearly, what does that mean? Bitcha leisitin levnei uvitei leisikach levnecha. Your daughter don't give to their son to marry, and don't take their daughter to marry your son. There's even an additional point that Rambam brings down, which we have in the story that's brought down the Torah, that there was a man who openly, publicly, not just as a private act, but he publicly, as an act, in an act of public defiance. This was when the Jews were in the desert for the 40 years. Brought a non-Jewish young woman, and in public was intimate with her. And came the man Pinchas, and in an act of righteous zealousness, he killed both of them on the spot. And the Torah supported what he did. And the Rambam says that if somebody does it publicly, then in the very moment of the act, there's even permission for an individual in an act of righteous zealousness to put that person to death, but only if it's in that moment. And that's, of course, a very extreme situation, that there's no jury, there's no judge, there's no justice, but on the spot, in the moment of the public act, only if it's done publicly, is this allowed. Okay, that's a bit of a wild point. Okay, next mitzvah we got over here is that it is forbidden to get married, for a Jewish woman to get married to a male descendant of the nations of Ammon and Moab. Only those two nations. Even if these men have converted to Judaism, they could convert to Judaism, but they cannot get married to a Jew. As the Torah says, "Lo yavai Amoini o Moavi bekal Hashem," that an Amoini and a Moavi shall not enter into the congregation of Hashem, which means they should not get married to a Jewish woman. The next two mitzvahs is like this: that it is forbidden to push away an Egyptian convert and not get married to him. So here's the opposite idea. Say if it's a man from Ammon and Moav descent, even if he's converted, you're not allowed to get married to him. But if it's an Egyptian descendant, I'm not talking about somebody who lives in Egypt today. I mean from the original nation of Egypt, which of course we have no record anymore. All these nations have been lost. Either Sancheiriv or Nebuchadnezzar, these old great emperors, have totally mixed up the populations. This was, by the way, an old trick that old world leaders love to do, which is to totally mix up nations and to throw people around. And it was a way for them to kind of seize control by removing any sense of nationhood from distinct nations. But what that also did was that all these old constructs of specific nations and tribes have really been lost. So today no one knows who's from Ammon, who's from Moav, who's from the original nation of Egypt. But the point is, let's get back to the mitzvah, is that once there's an Egyptian, if he converts, you have to wait 2 generations. The first 2 generations are not allowed to get married to a Jew, but the third generation already is a complete Jew, and the mitzvah is you're not allowed to push them away and not get married to them. As the Torah says, "Loi tesaiv mitzri," and you shall not act with disgust towards the Egyptian. You should let this Egyptian convert or descendant of Egyptian converts get married with the Jewish people. Next mitzvah is the exact same mitzvah, but this time about the Edomites, the nation of Edom, which are the descendants of our uncle Esau, Esav, the brother of Yitzchak, Isaac. Jacob, the brother of Jacob. That anybody who comes from Esau, we're not allowed to push them away after 2 generations. This, of course, that means if they're converted. If they convert 2 generations later, they have to let them in. As the Torah says, "Adoimi," you shall not act with disgust towards the Adoimi, which is the nation of Esav, "Ki achichahu," for he is your brother. Okay, next mitzvah. It is forbidden for a mamzer, a child who is born from a forbidden relationship. That's a mamzer. I guess the proper English word would be a bastard, but that word already has many more definitions So let's not use that word. But I guess we'll call it what's the right word I'm looking for? An illicit child, a child that did not come from a proper kosher marriage, which was a forbidden marriage. That a mamzer is never allowed to get married to a Jewish woman, as the Torah says, "La yove mamzer kal Hashem," and a mamzer shall never be able to enter in marriage within the congregation of Hashem. The next mitzvah is that it is forbidden for a man whose reproductive organs have been destroyed, crushed, or removed to marry a Jewish woman. As the Torah says, "L'yavei p'tzua daka uchrus shavcha b'kal Hashem." A man with a crushed or removed reproductive organ shall not enter in marriage within the congregation of Hashem. That is this mitzvah. And the final mitzvah is that it is forbidden for a Jew to actively destroy the reproductive organ of any male of any animal, of any species of animal. And it doesn't matter if it's a human or an animal, anything, you're not allowed to destroy the reproductive organ. And this comes from the verse of you shall not do this in your land. And the Rambam adds that the prohibition applies even if there's an animal whose reproductive organ has already been destroyed or already been crushed and already is not usable anymore. But if a person goes and destroys it and damages it even more, even though he is not making the problem any worse, the problem is already there, but he is in violation of this mitzvah as well. All right, dear friends, that's what we got in today's mitzvahs. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you all soon. Sei gesund.